Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Happy midweek episode of What's Up, Doc. This is your diet doctora, Dr. Josephine Grace Chua Rojo. I hope you are all well and safe and sound in your homes. And we will now link this live episode in our other pages. We have Health and Wellness for Less. We also have Perfect at Last, Health, Weight, and wellness book series. That is also one of our page. And of course, our main production, the Global TV Network, London, New York, Asia, and of course, Good People TV. So if you can also like their pages, please do as means to support with this advocacy of low carb and fasting. So our topic for today is about intermittent fasting versus extended fasting. Before we proceed, we will identify each what comprises intermittent fasting and what also comprises an extended fasting. So we will tackle that one by one. If you have an idea or if you have read the books, kindly share it, whatever you know, in the comment section so that all of our other friends and families who are here, who are watching in our community in Life Without Rice, and also low carb feasting and fasting community can also learn from those of you who are even pro fasters, pro low carbers, who have been and discovered this way of life even way longer than I did. So should go and just post a comment. Before we proceed, I would like to say hi, of course, to Annabelle, Eleanor, Miss Tichu, Amaze sa inyong ginawa. Yes, Christina, Metoshala from Valenzuela City, good afternoon. So first, let's identify what is intermittent fasting. So, intermittent fasting, although there can be many definitions, some even considered intermittent fasting more than 24 hours. But for the purpose of this video, we are limiting the description of intermittent fasting as fasting or periodic fasting that is less than 24 hours. So, we usually begin counting fasting as fasting if it's already beyond 12 hours from your last meal intake. That is either food or water or any drinks that contains calories. So 12 hours is the minimum so that we can already reach some benefits and reap some benefits, including fat burning, including healing, and many more. So we will tackle that one by one. So there are many schedules and we will discuss that later. And for the purpose of this definition, extended fasting is the fasting that one person does that is beyond 24 hours. So if you are fasting for 25 hours, 26, 36, or 72, so that's 3 days already. You can also have 5 days, 7 days, or 14 days. So as a disclaimer, again, I am not recommending anybody to do it. I am simply sharing these ideas as possible tools for people to know that such a thing exists. I have been amazed with fasting ever since I discovered it 2 years ago when I stumbled upon a YouTube video that says why not eating at all is actually better than eating less. So that is also the reason behind why those who are dieting, who are almost like dying, that they are still eating, like they're eating just a piece of biscuit in a day. Why is that worse as compared to completely fasting or just drinking just plain water with electrolytes, with minerals, and with vitamins, but without calories? Why is that so? So I've been amazed with this way of life, and it's something that I've been in awe for 2 years now, and I experience it myself. As you know, I can be very conservative, but I am very much willing to take the risk as long as I know that the risk outweighs the benefits. And so far, personally, the benefits have been way better than the transient, temporary hunger pangs that we experience whenever we're fasting. So, extended fasting can have different forms. But for the purposes of this episode, we will just limit the meaning of fasting of no caloric intake. So, we are not talking about dry fasting or not taking any water, but we will be talking about fasting that includes water or clean fasting. So that is water plus a certain zero calorie drinks and also unsweetened ones. And of course, with electrolytes like salt, like magnesium, like potassium. And of course, part of that clean fasting is tea, plain herb tea or plain coffee without sugar or without cream. So those are the things that we will discuss. So what are the things that can be achieved when you do intermittent fasting? How about extended fasting? Which one is better when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to health, when it comes to healing, when it comes to overall wellness? So if you want, we will put them side by side or we will tackle them each first. So, what do you like? Let me know in the comment section if you have some opinions. Your opinion is very much welcome here. There's no right or wrong answer. We are here to share whatever knowledge that we already know. So, to start, we have intermittent fasting. So, intermittent fasting is something that makes you stop eating, consciously stop eating for at least 12 hours in a day. The most common, the most precious one, the most popular one is actually 16-8 schedule. So that is 16 hours of fasting and about 8 hours of eating window. So I would like to congratulate our episode for today for reaching 100 live views. It was 101 a while ago. So thank you so much for being there. 100 people watching us right now. Please do share this to your family and loved ones, to your timelines and messengers, so that others can also benefit or at least learn something from it. I know there are a lot who are very, very skeptical when it comes to fasting, even intermittent fasting, and how much more with extended fasting. So, this is actually the reason why we are doing this. I myself have been very, very skeptical. That is also what pushed me to promote this advocacy, because if I was able to convince my very, very skeptical, my very, very critical mind, I know I can also convince others knowing the basic science behind this. And much more important than the basic science, actually, is the common sense behind this way of life. Why this is so beneficial, why it is something that I consider everybody should really go into, except for those little number of population that are not advised to go and undergo fasting. So we will also tackle about that. So first, with intermittent fasting, we usually divide the 24 hours into two windows. So we have a window that is a fasting window and what we call as an eating window. So for example, 12-12, you have 12 hours of eating and then 12 hours of fasting. So it is actually just a fancy way of saying that you are not eating beyond 12 hours. And actually, it may sound like a little complicated, but for first timers, this is simply an overnight fast. So, example, you can have your dinner at 7 in the evening. So, that's already your last food intake. So, you can sleep, you can drink all the water that you need. But of course, there's no more drinks, midnight snacks, and other calorie containing drinks like milk, like hot choco. What else? Like certain adult milk that I really feel is really not essential at all. We don't need to drink milk when we are adults already. If you want calcium, you are better off eating eggs and taking calcium supplements than drink those highly processed and packaged powdered or even liquid milk drinks that is composed of 50 to 60% sugar. Trust me, you can check on the labels at what they say. So it's mostly comprised of 50 to 60% carbohydrates. So you are not benefiting from that other than increasing your possibility of insulin resistance. Going back to intermittent fasting, you can start with 12-12 and you can slowly move it upward. So you can move into 13-11 or 14-12, 14-10. So with 14-10, you are now increasing your fasting window to by 2 hours as compared to your previous eating window. So with 14-12, 14-10 rather. So for example, you will have your last meal at 7 in the evening. 7 in the evening, and then comes the next day, you can already take your breakfast by 9 in the morning. So that is already a 14-hour gap. So what we usually advise is, if you want to maximize your intermittent fasting time, your fasting schedule, you can actually benefit from making your morning as productive as possible. All the things that you need to do, all the things that you need to accomplish, do it in the morning, and you'll be very, very productive, and you will be surprised that you actually won't remember even eating. The sad part before is that when we felt like we missed our meal, we tend to overeat on our next meal. But upon knowing that intermittent fasting can actually help us heal ourselves and provide opportunity for our stored energy and our stored fats to get burned even just a little as 2 hours extra, you know that we no longer need to compensate two meals instead of just the regular one whenever we miss like skipping breakfast. Okay, so that is one important of intermittent fasting. So for us, for example, we've been so used to intermittent fasting for so long, we've already experienced extended fasting, that a minimum of 18 hours fasting is already somewhat like the normal for us. But don't rush yourself. Of course, get pressured, because each journey is unique. Each journey, each health path that you will take is yours. So you don't compare it with other people, but you compare it with yourself, and you will just be amazed, because before, missing one meal might already make you feel like you're dying. But the moment you're able to skip two meals intentionally, with the right mindset, with the right preparation, you can actually feel that you are empowered, that you can do so many things more. You can do so when it comes to your wellness, when it comes to your well-being, because finally you were able to accomplish that thing you never thought you'll ever accomplish, that is surviving a day with just only one meal or missing two meals even. And after that one, actually you will realize that you still have the energy, especially in the morning. even if you are used to Even if you are used to eating breakfast, but if your heart and mind is set on not having breakfast and doing what you need to do on your day's list, you'll be surprised how much you can accomplish. This is also because our body will tend to have a rise of glucose in the morning, even if you didn't take any food containing glucose the previous day. How is that? How is that possible? This is because our liver, again, has the capacity to produce its own glucose whenever it needs it. So that glucose, through the process of gluconeogenesis, can actually produce its own glucose in preparation for the supposedly normal morning hunting, morning physical activity. Because as we said, our body is still similar to that of a caveman, to that of a hunter and gatherer. And that's why, even if we are already in this modern world, our body still responds as if we are still hunters and gatherers from 2 million to 14 million years ago. And we can maximize that benefit, that temporary, transient rise of blood glucose in the morning, by doing something productive. Okay, so intermittent fasting is actually very advantageous when it comes to everyday work, especially for busy mothers, for those fathers who are busy at work, who have a lot of things to do in the morning. You can now actually maximize those times into making it your most productive time. Well-being wise, it's also so good because you won't actually feel like depriving yourself. One of our favorite authors actually is this Jean Stephens. So she wrote a book entitled Delay, Don't Deny. So the concept is intermittent fasting. So with intermittent fasting, you're actually not depriving yourself with any food. It's just that you are delaying it. So don't worry, you just tell yourself, even if I want to eat that certain food like that pancake, you will not feel so deprived, because you know you can eat that, because you know you can enjoy that, but only at a later time of the day, not on that exact time. And that delay can actually feel like a victorious like a victory once you've accomplished that. And the food that you've delayed will actually appear like a reward already. So well-being wise, intermittent fasting can do so much goodness in your well-being simply because you are actually achieving something every day. And what you are achieving will only depend on you. So if you want to have lots of celebration in a day, you can start with realistic and, of course, doable, and, of course, some schedule that will perfectly fit your own personal lifestyle based on your work, based on your responsibilities at home, and even your preference. So, say, for example, if you want to be asleep the whole morning, so you can pattern your day in a way that you are sleeping the whole morning, and then you'll be having your breakfast late in the afternoon and then enjoying your time in the evening. So you can do that. You can always do that. So intermittent fasting is so flexible. It can be adapted by anybody. So it's simply an overnight fast that you extend. And if you want to reap more benefits, especially if you are taking foods that are rich in carbohydrates that may have insulin effect, that may increase your insulin spike. So although we recommend low carb nutrition that is devoid of simple sugars and all those processed foods, but for the sake of beginners who cannot accommodate both fasting and both low carb meals, so you can focus in either one. So you can focus first on low carb meals, and you can also focus on intermittent fasting. So it will be up to you which ones you can give up. Like for me, for example, I started first with fasting before I discovered low carb nutrition because I realized if I really want to maximize the benefits that I reap from intermittent fasting, it should be paired by low carb nutrition. Why? Because whenever you take in food, say for example, a piece of bread, that piece of bread will lead to an increase in insulin. And when there is an insulin in your body, it will, yes, lower down the glucose that that bread produced, but the insulin will stay in your system up to 18 hours for that. So for that whole 18 hours, even if you are already not eating so much, even if you are only eating that only piece of bread, your fat burning is somewhat blocked because insulin will block the fat burning process in the body. That is why it is important, especially for weight loss, that if you want to maximize the benefit of weight loss, you should pair up intermittent fasting with low carb nutrition so that it is something that can maximize our benefits. So before we proceed, I would like to say thank you to my clinic manager and my brother Alvin for this very, very yummy drink. So if you're part of the low carb nutrition and fasting lifestyle, so we've discovered this herb tea made of turmeric, ginger, and lemon. And no, lemongrass. And during our fasting, we take that, but during our eating window, we add a little lemon extract. So this already feels like an herb lemonade, which is so, so good. And I think I will have this as closing meal. So I'm not advertising anything. I think in the Philippines, this is a very, very fairly common combination. So turmeric, ginger, and lemongrass. You can check in any of your favorite drugstore. So I think what really makes this drink good is actually the ice. So it's the ice cold drink that makes it so refreshing. And of course, as what the moderators and admins of Life Without Rice and Low Carb Feasting and Fasting community, we would like to make this lifestyle as sustainable as possible by also providing variety of flavors that we can enjoy. Because, of course, although eggs are good, but we cannot live on eggs alone. That is why, similar to not being able to live on bread alone, we can also live better, fuller, and more meaningful, and of course, happier with variation. So intermittent fasting is good for those who would like to lose weight the slowly but surely way. And if you want to maximize the benefit, you can take it up a little further by eating low carb meals as part of your mealtime or your eating window. So there are many schedules of intermittent fasting. So we have what one of the most effective when it comes to weight loss and even healing is actually OMAD, or 1 meal a day. So 1 meal a day, or OMAD, is it's not just simply eating just once a day. You can actually have a 23-1, so an eating window of about an hour and then closing it, and then you can take your next meal the next day. But it can even actually be as little as 19 hours only of fasting, with a fasting or an eating window of about 5 hours. So during that 5 hours, you have the option of eating two regular meals or one meal with a very light snacks or light meal as you close it. So remember, it doesn't need to be really like a meal with spoon, fork, and knives, but a meal can actually be just a drink. So, for example, a chia pudding with almond milk and with some berries. Actually, if you compute that macronutrient and the overall caloric composition of that drink, it's already like a meal. So that is what will comprise intermittent fasting, and we will now compare it with extended fasting. But before we do, if you are an intermittent faster, I hope you can put in the comment section what your experiences were and how good you are with it, and how you feel like maybe if you are having troubles, if you have experiences, what are the tips and tricks that you've discovered along the way that made it work. So with intermittent fasting, there's OMAD, there's also TMAD, or TMAD, meaning 2 meals a day, okay? But with 3 meals a day, so that's already a different story. And of course, you can still do that for those who do not want to lose any weight, or for those even who wants to gain weight but who wants to reap the benefits of intermittent fasting, you can still enjoy your 3 meals. So there is this study actually. Before we proceed with extended fasting, I will show you a study regarding the difference between an extended fasting and I'm sorry, a difference between an intermittent fasting and regular eating. It's not here. But anyway, there is this experiment between rats. So there's one group of rats who were given, like, for example, 2,000 calories or 1,000 calories of food. And this one group of rats were given that same amount of food available for the rest of 24 hours. However, another group of rats were given the same amount, like 1,000 calories. However, that was restricted in a 6 hour eating window. At the end of the course of the project, so both of them consumed their 1,000 kilocalorie allowance for that time. And do you know what's the difference? If this is the top view of a rat, the rat that were eating the same amount of food but available for the whole 24 hours is like this. So they are this fat. And as compared to the ones that are eating the same amount of food but only on a very short window, like 6 hours, they're actually somewhat like this. So you can see the difference, how intermittent fasting works. This is the major difference why weight loss and when it comes to healing, that intermittent fasting will work differently if both person is eating the same thing, eating the same amount of calories. So again, that is just one of the benefits, because a little starvation or periodic fasting is actually beneficial because it will trigger a very important process that was just discovered a couple of years ago. It was discovered by a Japanese scientist and even won a Nobel Prize award. So it discovered autophagy. So autophagy is the self-eating mechanism of the body. Simply put, our body, when put into hunger mode or somewhat starvation mode or somewhat scarcity mode, it will now try to dig up on those parts of our body, parts of our cells that are already defective, that are already not very functional, and it will engulf that and digest that, and it will now be used as energy or other forms of proteins that our body needs. So if you know, I've done longest fast last week, so that was 14 days. And the most amazing benefit, actually, I thought, I know, I've read theoretically that it will regenerate a lot of good cells, a lot of new whatever, but I didn't expect to notice it on a day-to-day basis. So before, I've had my regular hair fall, maybe around 100 hairs a day. That is actually somewhat regular for women to have hair fall every day after shampooing. But to my surprise, during that span of time, my hair fall actually decreased. And it's not that I'm already bald. So my hair is actually looking a lot healthier. And even my skin, and of course, thank you for the ring light and for our lighting here. But really, there is much difference. My skin looks more tightened. I wouldn't need to put so much makeup, just a very, very light powder just to make myself look a little presentable for you guys. But otherwise, the healing and the renewal is actually there. So it's not my first time to do it, but intermittent fasting can get you there. And others might be afraid that intermittent fasting can lead to sagging, to lead to very loose skin. So those loose skin, so those sagging and those wrinkles are actually very, very much temporary. So that temporary wrinkling of the skin or loss of elasticity of the skin is actually just in the initial part of water weight and water loss of water weight, and at the same time loss of fatty tissue. But the moment you continue it and your body adapts to it, it will eventually actually tighten. And that is still part of autophagy. So autophagy is the mechanism of your body eating up those extra parts of our body that are no longer necessary, that are no longer needed. So that is what intermittent fasting is. And I think it can be the best kind of schedule for those who have the personality that will fit intermittent fasting. And what is that personality? That is actually patience. Okay, so not everybody have patience, and not everybody has the capacity to have that sense of moderation that can stop themselves and are willing to wait. And I really admire those people who can do that, who can wait until it really gets better, even if it sometimes there are a lot of times that it seems it might not work, because intermittent fasting might work drastically for those who have a lot to lose. But for those who doesn't actually have much to lose, like for example, they are of normal weight to start with, but on the high normal and just want to have a lower normal, say for example, they want to become a Victoria's Secret model, or they want to join a pageant, that they want to lose weight. So intermittent fasting might not work that easily and that fast, okay? But it can help eventually, because our body is actually not inclined also to be on that side of skin and bones like structure, or else we wouldn't survive this long as hunters or gatherers, because we also need some bulk, some muscles for us to thrive, for us to combat our predators, and of course to be able to outrun the prey that we will need to eat during those caveman times. Okay, so now we will now move on to extended fasting. So extended fasting is prolonging your fasting for more than 24 hours. So there are a lot of schedule. There is one of the well-studied one is actually ADF, or alternate day fasting. So if you put a time to it, so it's actually like a 36-12 schedule. So that is 36 hours of fasting and 12 hours of schedule. I know it may sound so shocking and alarming for some, especially for those who are not aware that there are actually people who are really fasting longer normally on a day-to-day basis. And I understand, because I felt so well. I felt the same the first time I heard it. The first time I read about it, it felt like a science fiction and sounds so crazy. Why would a person eat only every other day? And there was even a time that I was so even troubled, to a point that I was so shocked. thinking that there are even people who are only eating 3 times in a week. So that is ADF and OMAD at the same time. So the person is eating every other day as an alternate day fasting, and during the eating daytime, they're only eating once a day. So I feel like, no, that's really crazy. But as I went deeper and I read about it, I realized that each has their own reason. And one of the reason actually is for healing, because autophagy actually starts only to maximize after 24 hours. Okay, it starts to peak after 24 hours, and that's the only time that your cells are actually being really cleansed to the cellular level, and it can peak up to 4 days. On that fourth day, so autophagy maximizes out. So that's the time that your body is actually somewhat removed, somewhat overhauled, and somewhat replenished already. So you will lose a lot of weight, and of course after eating again, especially if you are not breaking your fast properly. So you, from not eating anything, you immediately went on a feast. So of course that can also be really, really bad, and it's something that we avoid, because there is what we call as refeeding syndrome, and it's something we need to understand before we even consider extended fasting, because doing fasting actually won't kill you. But what kills those who did extended fasting and died actually all actually died because of wrong refeeding protocol. It's the moment, it's how they broke their fast that actually put them in danger. But the fasting alone, our body can adapt to fasting very, very well. That it's even shown, studies have shown that it can heal and can reverse a lot of illness. Personally, I have reversed my allergic rhinitis, I have reversed my pre-diabetes, and of course, before I also used to have a lot of aches and pains every morning right after I wake up, but now seldom do I experience that. I only experience that now, my club nose, my back pain, if ever I will indulge and eat sugary, sweets, and high carbohydrate foods. But otherwise, as long as I stick to my low carb meals, actually, I wouldn't have any other problem. So, extended fasting can be very, very challenging. So, if you feel like ADF is already too much, so don't even bother going into a full 48 hours or a full 72 hours of fasting, because if you feel like you are already dying when you skip one meal, I know, I understand. You can just imagine how much more if it's 2 meals or 3 meals or 4 meals or 5 meals that I skip. I think I would have died 3 times or 5 times already. But honestly, after experiencing fasting for more than 2 years now, it's really true. Hunger pangs, or the sensation of hunger, doesn't actually worsen as the day goes by. Actually, the hunger even disappears at day 4 to 5, depending on how well adapted you are, or how much you've adjusted already with fasting. But over time, that hunger pangs doesn't actually become greater or even worse. In fact, it diminishes over time. That is because the ghrelin hormone, or the hunger hormone, is only very, very elevated during the first episode that you missed your meal. The second one, it's no longer that hard. And the third one, it's no longer that even that disturbing. So that hunger pangs expected to still be felt around the same time that you are actually used to eating. So it will depend on your normal eating schedule. And so it is not for everyone, because I know not everybody is emotionally and mentally prepared for extended fasting. If you wish to know more, our Perfect at Last book one, is actually a fasting protocol for those of you who are interested to know more about it. But for the sake of this video, I am emphasizing that extended fasting can actually reap the benefits of rapid weight loss that can be sustained if ever you break it gently and properly. And of course, you don't go into feasting right after. It can heal a lot, especially inflammatory diseases. Okay, inflammation is one of the first thing to go. So before, I used to have allergic rhinitis. That's why I am an oral breather. So that's why when I'm speaking, even if I can breathe well, I still speak through my mouth because my whole life my nose has been so clogged. I am no longer used to breathing in my nose. That even if I'm speaking, I'm actually breathing through my mouth. So that is why I have this what we call as nasal speech. Okay, so even that, for the first time in my life, when I did my first 4 days and half water fasting, on the second day, I actually felt 100% of the air that I tried to breathe finally coming into my lungs. And as a child, I was also asthmatic. And since I went into low carb nutrition and doing incorporating fasting in my day to day, never have I felt the need to take any medication. Okay, so from having a steroid maintenance spray for my nose, and also everyday intake, almost overdosing with antihistamine because my nose and my eyes are so itchy. I sometimes cannot function well. From then on, more than 2 years ago, I no longer have them. So I still accept. There I as a doctor, I still receive a lot of samples of medicines, and I still accept them. And of course, I still give them to my patients who need them, especially for those who cannot fast. But otherwise, there are so many other testimonials when it comes to healing, as serious as cancer, reversal of diabetes from insulin sensitivity, and even lowering of blood pressure because of intermittent fasting, both intermittent and extended fasting. But before you go there and get excited to start this, make sure you are very much knowledgeable and know that you are not one of these population that are contraindicated to undergo extended fasting. So those with very, very serious illness that are already kakiktik. So kakiktik or kakiksha, or the appearance of a very, very malnourished person who already is somewhat like skin and bones, looking almost like skeleton in their beauty. So if you're already kakiksik, very severely malnourished, and of course you have other conditions, medical underlying medical conditions like prolonged diabetes, those with severe CKD. It should all be done under direct supervision of a doctor knowledgeable with fasting. But otherwise, you shouldn't do it yourself. Also, for those who are having maintenance medications, because when you are fasting, you actually don't take anything other than water and supplements. We have a lot of supplements. The most important one would be sodium or salt, and then we also have magnesium and potassium. But of course, it shouldn't be done abruptly and without preparation, especially for those who already have a medical condition, because you can actually endanger yourself, especially for those who have diabetes mellitus, because there is what we call as DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis, wherein your blood is so acidic because of the elevated sugar together with elevated ketones. Because when you are on extended fasting, after 2 or 3 days, your source of energy is actually no longer glucose, but it's already ketones, or mostly coming from fatty acids and ketones, or the ones coming from fats. If you are not diabetic, ketoacidosis will not happen because your blood glucose will be maintained at all time low or low normal levels as a byproduct of gluconeogenesis from your liver. But for those who are having diabetes mellitus, you need first to make sure that your sugar is controlled either by previous intermittent fasting, slowly but surely intermittent fasting, or slowly but surely low carb meals, but never go into direct extended fasting when you are in deep diabetes mellitus type 2, because you might be endangering yourself from a medical emergency. Okay, so there are a lot of preparations needed, but if we sum up the three differences when it comes to health, when it comes to weight loss, and when it comes to overall wellness, we can compare them one by one. So first, intermittent fasting, any schedule. even if it's 24, like Aunt Jessie, doing 7 months of 24 schedule already. And as you compare it with extended fasting, like for example, a 48 hours of fasting and then no fasting at all after. So, of course, when it comes to health, consistency is important. So, extended fasting actually can just be a part of your cycle when it comes to your schedule to mix and match, to give some variety so that your body will not adapt to that one single regime. Because intermittent fasting is good, but it's also not good to have that same schedule over time for the whole year. Our body adjusts and adapts very easily. That's why it is important to make your schedule have some variety. So this is where extended fasting can actually be incorporated. But when it comes to health, both are very beneficial and both are very good when it comes to health, especially if you combine them on the right time. So for example, you maintain a minimum of intermittent fasting schedule on a day-to-day basis, and then sometimes you upscale it, you elevate it into an extended fasting, like a 36 hours in a week, and sometimes you can even lower it down from, for example, your usual of 16 to 18 hours, and then comes weekend or comes once a week or once every 2 weeks celebration. You can shorten it to 14 hours or 16 hours so that you can have more time to upscale, to amp up your nutrient intake for the day. And that can actually boost your metabolism the good way, so long as you try to avoid simple sugars, processed foods, and highly toxic oils like canola, sunflower, sesame, and other seed oils, cottonseed, rapeseed, and so many other oils. Focus on the good ones: coconut, olive oil, avocado oil. Those are the good ones. And if you can have butter or lard or tallow, those are also good options. Okay. So when it comes to health, both are beneficial. It's a matter of which one will work for you best and which one will fit your schedule. But for maximal benefit, you can actually combine both of them. So it's up to you how far you are willing to take, or how far are you willing to go, and how far can your heart and mind can overcome when it comes to extended fasting and also your daily intermittent fasting schedule. And comes with weight loss, of course. Book one is entitled Perfect at Last Weight, the evolutionary attaining an ideal body weight the fastest, most natural way, is actually referring to extended fasting. Because yes, that is actually the fastest and efficient and even the most natural way of losing weight. But what is important there is sustainability. How long can you continue to maintain that weight loss? And it will matter what will you do after the extended fasting. So that one matters more than the fasting itself. So extended fasting can give you the best results when it comes to very drastic weight changes, but know that it might have an effect on your psychological side, wherein you might tend to overeat after. So if you will do extended fasting, so for example 3 days, but you will feast on the next 7 days, you'd rather go for not having extended fasting at all. You'd rather go for a day-to-day intermittent fasting, even just as low as 12 hours, but no feasting, and even as low as maintain on 14 or 16 hours, but eating only regular and nutritious meals without overindulgence, you can still get better benefits. So what is important is you know that these tools are some of the things that you can do, that you can maximize, but there is a catch. It's not like when you do this, it's already an excuse for you to feast on something else and then do another episode of this and then go into that vicious cycle of overeating and then making your body suffer again, or else that way you are actually causing more damage to your body. Remember, our body has the capacity to heal itself, but the repair and healing should be more than the damage that we are causing. So you are causing it more damage than healing. So you'd rather go for just not having any intense schedule like extended fasting, if that will only cause you to have unhealthy eating habits. So, and if you think that you have an eating disorder, if you think you are eating through emotions, eating your emotions up, not really because of nutritional needs, I advise to seek help, to seek consult, because eating disorder is actually not related to food, but it is related to a more deeper problem that needs to be addressed. Okay, so seek consult. It can be your friend, your family, or it can be a professional help. So don't be ashamed. We can overcome this, and mindset is more important, which brings us to the last comparison of intermittent and extended fasting when it comes to wellness, when it comes to overall holistic well being. So, intermittent fasting can give you the control, the sense of control, the sense of well being on a day to day basis. So, you can have that victorious event every day. You can also have that failure moment on a day-to-day basis, but it will boil down to your mindset, how much you will accomplish. And sometimes if you're into this way of life for so long, there is really that need for you or for us to want to challenge ourselves. So from our comfort zone of doing just 16 hours, we can now challenge ourselves into moving up a little for 18 hours and even go for 19 hours from time to time. So those are little achievements that can make you feel more empowered, because especially for those people like for me, for example, that I feel like my days before have been so filled with enjoyment of food. So saying no to food actually for me is somewhat very, very liberating and somewhat very empowering when it comes to my own sense of well-being, that thinking I can say no to food, I can do that. If I can do that, I can do so many things, so many other things other than that. And that's what happened. And that is also something that you can do to yourself. And how about extended fasting? So, extended fasting can really be tricky. If you are not prepared psychologically, it can lead you to even go in the dark places like depression and anxiety, because during that first 3 days that might be really, really hard. So if you are not on the right mindset, if you're not on the right well-being, I don't recommend you doing such or trying even such unless you have the right reason, the right positive motivation and inspiration to do this, so that you can sustain extended fasting. And when you do it under the right mindset, with the right preparation, it can be the most surreal feeling of happiness and achievement that one can ever feel. It's like before, I never thought I could live on a day not eating. And now, looking back after 2 years, I was able to accomplish a couple of long fasts, 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 12 days, and the recent was 14 days. And that achievement is not for anybody, but actually just for myself. So if I know I can say no to food, even even going against what my instinct is saying, because of a higher purpose, or because of a higher reason, more deeper reason, then I know I can motivate myself into doing something else that I really should I need to do it. Okay, so it becomes your previous longest fast can actually become your own personal record of achievement that you can always refer back to whenever you feel like down, whenever you feel like you are having some doubts with yourself. So you can make that as a reference. If you can do that, you can do so many things. So that's actually just a little gist of our intermittent versus extended fasting. These talks of ours, although it may sound so heavy on an hour, but there's actually a lot more information that are out there that I want to share with you, but it's limited by this time. And of course, this is a platform where anybody can listen, even children can listen. So we are filtering it. So thank you so much for watching. A while ago we were able to reach more than 150 live viewers, and now we are seeing my angel numbers. It's 111, it's 111. So thank you so much. That's it. And if you wish to know more, you are very much welcome to join our masterclass for low carb nutrition and fasting lifestyle this coming April 10. So it's going to be a Saturday series. If you are busy, don't worry. We will record the video and will be made available for those who are having conflict of schedules, because we are catering participants from the other side of the world, mostly Filipinos, of course. And of course, non-Filipinos are very, very much welcome, since the mode of teaching, the mode of communication will be primarily be in English. And of course, it will be on layman's definition for better understanding, so that all of us, if not everybody of us, can really become an expert when it comes to low carb nutrition and fasting. And each of us can become an advocate in our own community, in our own family, even in our circle of friends, so that everybody can benefit from this free, unadulterated, and very genuine way of life that is natural and something that everybody can benefit from. So thank you all so much. There's so many of you who are greeting. You know that I love you and I read all of your messages. I will get back to you when I can. But for the purposes of this, I will answer some questions, like my dear friend Andrea Araza, allowed to drink black coffee even without sugar if it's outside your eating window time, just water. So again, during what we call as fasting window, so we have water only fasting, but we also have clean fasting. So with clean fasting, water, plain tea, plain coffee, even salt are allowed. Okay. Some can add controversial with apple cider vinegar, and for me, I consider them as healthy as long as it's the filtered apple cider vinegar, or even just natural vinegar, as long as it's zero sugar. Okay. So thank you so much. I'm so happy that Annabelle was already almost on her way and wearing her dream clothes. So those are the motivations that we have. So we have weight goals, but we also have other non-scale victories or non-scale goals. So as my friend Annabelle, her dream is to fit to her favorite or dream clothes. So I wish you well, and I'm sure you will get there in no time. So there's a lot of you, and thank you so much. And just keep on sending a message and updates and sharing what you know in our two communities in Facebook, support groups in Facebook, the right life without rice for food inspirations, and of course, low carb feasting and fasting community for some tips and tricks when it comes to this way of life. So, maraming salamat. Thank you so much. For those who are taking antibiotics, you can say no to fasting first, continue and focus on your healing, and everything else can wait. Just continue when you are not fasting, at least stay low carb. So low carb has no contraindication. And for contraindication for fasting, very young children, elderly who are already sick, pregnant women, and those breastfeeding, for those who are breastfeeding their children less than 6 months old. Okay, so those are the important things that we should be wary about, and other illnesses that are at risk of going under nourishment. Okay, so that's it for now. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Magandang gabi. Thank you so much. Stay low carb always so that we will all stay safe. Bye-bye.